Hello and welcome to Walker Tea Review. I'm Jason Walker here with a few tips on how to use a gaiwan, to talk a little bit about the gaiwan. And first off, why use a gaiwan? Well, gaiwans are relatively simple. There's not a lot of parts that are going to wear out, no seals that are going to get cracked or damaged. There's no moving parts to really have to worry about. It's easy to clean. It's easy to just rinse out. If there is some stains or something over prolonged use, it's easy enough to just get a sponge and scrub that out. It's accessible. You can really get in there and clean it up. It's quick for steeping. You'll adjust the amount of tea that you're going to use, tea leaf that you're going to use, water temperature and time, and that's going to be relatively quicker than some of your other methods. Along with that, that means you're going to get re-steeps. And because they're quicker, you're going to get more re-steeps, which is going to show you more layers of the tea because you're re-steeping it more often, and each time you get just a little bit more nuance from the time before. So those are some of the main reasons. Now, first off, we want to talk a little bit about the size and material, because there are lots of different types of gaiwans. And you may be thinking about which one's the right one for you, the most multi-purpose. I like a basic, clean, plain porcelain gaiwan. Now, when you're choosing the gaiwan, things that you want to consider is size. You might want to go here with a baby bear size, which would be more for, if it's for individual use, you're going to get a small cup, and you're going to just kind of savor maybe a more expensive tea that you want to use very sparingly. Or you could go with a Papa Bear size, which would be useful if you're serving more than one person. So you want to be able to share that out among more people. The other things that you want to consider, again, porcelain is fairly versatile as far as it's not going to affect different, whether you're using greens, I should say, black teas, oolongs, they're going to do just fine in a basic porcelain type as compared to there are some ceramics or clays. Ceramics, like a thicker ceramic, might hold more heat, might overcook some of your delicate green or even white teas that you could be trying to use in a gaiwan. A thinner porcelain gaiwan like these, that heat distributes a little bit more evenly. It radiates that heat more evenly, and if you're still concerned it gets too hot, of course you can always just take the lid off. With that big open face there, a lot of heat rises off just like that. Okay. So now looking at some of the gaiwans here, I'm actually going to just talk a little bit about using a gaiwan. Of course, there are three main parts here. You've got the saucer at the bottom, you've got the actual bowl or cup here in the middle, and your lid. Sometimes you might just see offered the bowl and lid here, but a lot of times you'll get the saucer as well. Now, one of the things to consider is that with a gaiwan, you're going to be using probably more tea than you would with some other types, and it looks ratio or proportion-wise, it looks like a lot of tea. And if you're not sure how much, regardless of size, I generally find using your lid, 80% of the lid is covered. If you press down, say with a green tea, some of your black teas, that will usually work. So you can see here, I've got some measured, ready to go. I'm going to just pour that right in here. And that covers about 1 inch to 1.5 inches of this. This is about a 3-ounce size gaiwan. So that covers about the base, bottom 1 inch to 1.5 inches diameter down there. So now with that done, I'm going to get out my water here. This has been steeped and it's been hot. It's been boiled, so I'm going to just pour it in. Now there are tricks you may find that by pouring along the edge versus pouring in the middle. But one of the things, the main considerations here is that you want to make sure that all the leaves get coated. There aren't some partially dry leaves floating on top, and you want enough water so a little bit rests near the edge of the rim of the lid there, or a little bit above. But that looks good there. Other things that you'll note when you are pouring or using the ready to serve this, there are different ways that you can pour. Actually, I'm going to go ahead because, like I said, when you steep or when you prepare with a gaiwan, you can often go faster. You get more steeps that way. So some useful things to have if you are serving more than one person. If it's just yourself, you can of course have a cup. A towel is always handy because you may be having a bit of a dribble there. It's often hard to not have a few drops come out. So otherwise, if you're serving more than one person, it's useful to have a pitcher. And if you don't want to have any tea leaves falling down into your pitcher, or if you're serving into a cup, a strainer type, a nice mesh strainer there is helpful. And to pour, I'm actually going to just angle my lid over to the side. This is one of the most more familiar ways, but it takes a little more practice. Angle your lid over to the side and pour directly in. And that gives you a nice tea. And because this was a relatively brief steep, you can add more leaf, cut down your steep time even shorter, especially if you're in a hurry, if you're in a workplace. You only have a few seconds to make a steep. That's something that you may want to consider. Now, the other thing to note is there is more than one way. If you are concerned about the level of heat, gaiwan with boiling water, the thin porcelain wall can get quite hot. So the other option, there are a couple of others. You may want to try something like an inverted sandwich type. You know, if you're holding a hamburger sandwich like this, you do the opposite. You angle your lid over to the side, you put your thumbs there to hold the top of the lid, and you pour like that. You can vary that if you get it up into one hand and pour one-handed, holding the saucer underneath. Of course, if you are just drinking, you can also drink straight from the gaiwan. Angle your lid over to the side just a little bit so that the opening is facing you, and just drink straight from the gaiwan as well. So I hope these are useful ways, things to consider. Share your tips as well about using a gaiwan and your experience with using a gaiwan, or send me questions about using a gaiwan. And always head back to WalkerTeaReview.com for more information.